There's been all this conversation that started from this. I was just hacked. Stay tuned for details. Please avoid buying any Squiggles until we get them flagged. Just lot 25 plus and a few other NFTs, including an Autoglyph. DaVinci, do you think that you would call this more of a scam versus a hack?
So what I'm waiting on is a breakdown from him. He definitely clicked a malicious link, right? But it could have been a spear phishing scam, which is more of a targeted campaign against his profile, right? So maybe they call him up pretending to be Apple or of some sort, or they send him a target or personalized email, or they've socially engineered things with him over Twitter for 3, 4, 5 months to give him that confidence to click that link to obtain a certain NFT. There is some backstory that we need to this. But speaking plainly, it is a scam. We just don't know the level.
It's rough.
Yeah, we just don't know the level of it.
DaVinci, I know we got to go get into your threads and all this kind of stuff, but this is kind of breaking news, and I think fundamentally important discussion for like the space as a whole. So you have Kevin Rose, who's obviously big into all of this stuff. He has an insanely successful NFT collection, as well as a podcast where they talk about all this tech stuff. And I think when things like this happen, I think, wow, that's super shitty for Kevin. And then my second thought goes to, man, like, why would anybody that's debating getting into this space see this from an extremely prominent individual and think, yeah, I want to join and put my money into blockchain?
Yeah, well, I build cybersecurity teams. I do that for a living. I've been doing that for 10 years. Quite a few of them within blockchain or Web3. So it's actually quite topical. Now, I've said this, and I've said this for a while, ever since the Artifact COO got hacked, that we need some custodial options for assets. The general public, there's no way the general public is going to be able to come in and effectively self-custody if, OGs and individuals intimately familiar with the space, like the likes of Kevin, I mean, it happened to NFT God a week or two before that, etc., are getting phished and hacked, right? It's not going to happen. So it's definitely something we need to look at.
So when you were talking about the security teams in here, I think that one kind of scary part is you want to try to trust people, but at the same time, within emails, everybody sends different documents, attachments, whatever. And I feel like it's really easy to potentially open something that's malicious. Is there anything you can do with that, or is it just having another computer that's not connected to anything that you do emails, open files, and respond to things on?
The safest thing to do is to get a hardware wallet or a Gnosis safe and segregate your assets, right?
Gotcha.
So the highest value asset, you keep in that hardware wallet, you keep it cold, meaning you don't use it to interact with the internet whatsoever. You keep your seed phrase on paper. You don't put that into your MetaMask online or keep it on email, etc., And you have a brand new hot wallet that you use to interact with New Mint with a limited amount of crypto assets and NFTs on it.
Gotcha. So I just want to, before we get into the threads, I want to go over the announcement coming out from Doodles today, because I also think this is kind of big for the space. So I'm just going to go through this as quick as possible. Doodles 2 collectibles launching on Flow. A new year means new opportunities and new adventures. In 2023, we're opening the gates so Doodles can live everywhere. Following last year's Duplicator airdrop and Genesis box sale, we're ready for beta entry and the first example of utility within Doodles 2 product experience. No one that will ultimately allow you to create your own doodle built both for you and by you. At their core, doodles are designed to be digital identities, expressions of ourselves, or rather, how we see ourselves as we travel the internet, the blockchain, and daily life. We imagine bringing our doodles with us to all of our important places, both online and in the physical world. Doodles don't have limits, only possibilities. Let's do a quick refresh of what the Doodle 2 collectible ecosystem is. It all starts by personalizing your look with attributes like body, hairstyle, and emotion. From there, you'll be able to customize your doodle with wearables, apparel, accessories, gadgets, and more. Once your perfect look is set, your new dynamic NFT identity will now be ready to share across social media, IRL experiences, and many other integrations we have planned. Everyone will be able to buy, sell, and trade their wearable NFTs. You can expect new wearable collections to be released through marquee drops, some featuring inline products and others, brand collaborations with some incredible, exciting partners, musicians, and creators. This launch is the start of a transcendent new journey for Doodles. As we develop the Doodles franchise and create experiences across music, animation, consumer products, live events, and more, we need an onboarding experience to our collectible ecosystem that is accessible, easy, and fun. And that's why Flow is a perfect partner. Doodles 2 is built to deliver daily utility to our community today, and thanks to Flow's non existent gas fees, Doodles holders can enjoy endless customization to create their own uniquely personalized characters. And as we look to the future, Flow's familiar onboarding experience will help welcome newcomers to Doodles and ultimately Web3. All Doodle holders will have an opportunity to be part of our expanding universe through multiple interconnected environments. Wherever you go, your Doodle will be with you, side by side with official Doodle characters and lore. DaVinci, any kind of quick reactions about them moving to Flow and them saying, hey, this is kind of like a wearable and identity project and sticking to that?
So there's a few points. Obviously, number one, Doodle's main aim is to achieve mainstream adoption, right? So in terms of releasing the secondary collection, increasing the number of items, the volume, the interactivity, that is good for the company. Now, when I saw the announcement, I had a few queries, right? So the first one is the utility with Doodles 2. Are they creating a game, a metaverse, maybe a real life fashion apparel business? How are they going to integrate these assets within the wider Web2 space, which will create demand? I mean, we've seen similar changes of apparel of the likes of Azuki, right? When you have the badges, you use a badge, it changes the look of your NFT or what your NFT is wearing, and you can post this as a PFP on Twitter, on Instagram, what have you. So why would individuals outside of the general collectability of the collection want to pay money to, accrue these different outfits and assets? So that's the first point, and I'm sure they probably have a number of projects or developments behind the scenes that we as consumers or NFT holders aren't aware of as of yet. The second point would be around just how does this benefit a holder of the original Doodle? Okay, so sometimes what's good for the company isn't always good for the holder, right? So it's going to take some time to see if, I guess, the increase in IP awareness, the increase in holders at a much lower price point, entry price point, is going to help and drive the price of the OG collection.
Do you think that Doodles is kind of trying to do what Cool Cats was wanting to do with the Paper Cats here, though?
Well, Cool Cats failed, right? The game wasn't the best, shall we say? It didn't gain traction, and because once you link a coin with a concrete value to your collection value then tracks the coin value, right? The token value, and it just dragged the whole value of the collection down, and wasn't great for putting it nicely. Wasn't great for holders of the OG Cool Cats collection. So that's a risk they run.
It's kind of wild, like just seeing what the entire space has done, what they say they want to do, and then what they actually end up doing as well. But let's jump into you, because you are probably one of the most insightful Twitter posters that I've seen. There's a lot of people that post like, their food, what they're doing when they're going live on stream, like myself. And it's like, okay, you know what? That's kind of interesting. But you've put some absolute time and effort into creating these wild threads from Autoglyphs. You did one on Fluff World, which we love to see as well. What's driven you to do these different threads, and how do you kind of do all the research for them?
Okay, I'll just give one more point in relation to Doodles.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
the announcement of the acquisition of Golden Wolf is actually very big. I think that's been underestimated in the market. I'm based in the UK. Golden Wolf is a top 2, top 3 animation house in the UK, and that's going to really allow them to expand their IP with high quality animation, high quality video. It'll probably help them with gaming assets. That is actually on par, shall we say, with the Doodles 2 announcement.
That's a very good thought. We touched on that yesterday, but it's funny because I mean, when you put it like that, it's interesting that we have back-to-back announcements that are pretty big of them acquiring that studio, and then immediately that they're moving some of their stuff to Flow.
So I think you asked about what got me into the content creation space, shall we say?
Yes, sir.
So you could say I've been a lurker to an extent when it comes to social media. I'm not actually, or historically, I'm not a big fan of social media. I've got actually a decently large presence on LinkedIn, but that's because of what I do as a day job. But in terms of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, it's minimal. I ran a few. Well, I was a community manager for a few uh, keynote NFT projects late 2021, early 2022, where I actively turned down followers. Didn't want any more followers. I used Twitter to track NFTs and crypto, right? But I have to give praise to the likes of Zeneca, um, yeah, the likes of Zeneca, probably Mr. Beast to an extent, uh, NFT God to an extent at a certain point as well. That actually encouraged me to get more heavily into the space. I mean, I noticed a major pain point, which is it's number one, it's almost impossible to track all of these new NFT collections. Number two, people forget that new individuals are coming in every day, and they actually aren't aware of the collections that have gone before. There's a massive arbitrage in terms of information um, from individuals that were in the NFT space in 2017 up to individuals that have entered in 2022, 2023. So there's some collections that I create threads around that people have just never heard of or they've never heard the stories about, right? And I get tweets, I get DMs all the time like, oh my gosh, DaVinci, I wasn't aware of this. I'm shocked that this is out there. This is a great collection, X, Y, and Z. So the whole aim of what I term to be the library of Vinci is to have one go-to point on Twitter. You can click through into my Twitter profile, the first pinned tweet, go through it, and you should be able to get education on a number of the key projects in Web3, either upcoming or prior, that will help you with your collection experience and your knowledge in general.
Now, of the different threads that you've done, what do you think was the most interesting one for learning? Because, I mean, just going through your page right off the bat here, World Wide Web's been something that's been around for a while, but I remember reading your thread on autoglyphs, for example, and I was like, damn, like there's a lot of stuff on here. And then I believe you did one on terraforms as well. So is there anything that you think people really should be looking at from a collection standpoint that you've done research on?
So number one, it depends on your price point. But a lot of people are missing out on historical artifacts. The likes of Xcopy, right? That thread, which is a living thread, I'm going to actually create the complete works of Xcopy from 2020, late 2017, actually, all of the way to the present day. He's an artist that's entrenched. He's not going anywhere. His art pieces are on the same level of the likes of autoglyphs, protoglyphs, Fidenzas, Squiggles, etc. But they've got the historical pieces have lesser awareness because it's only the likes of the crypto punks and some of the OG collectors in the space that are aware of them. I learned so much going. Xcopy was before my time, so I learned so much researching his whole collection, how it came together, the perseverance it took. He worked within digital art for 10 years before he got into NFTs. No exposure, no demand, and he just kept doing it. It's what he loved to do. He kept creating, etc., etc. But if I was an investor and if I was a big investor, shall we say, and I had between 20 and 100 ETH, I'm looking at historical collections that have less eyes on them and collections that are heavily held by CryptoPunk holders because they have a great sense. They're basically the taste makers for the NFT space. So
That's
Xcopy's,
Ooh,
oh,
that's an
sorry.
interesting way of looking at it. I never thought of it like that.
Trust me, Scoppies, crypto dick butts, funnily enough, autoglyphs, obviously Fidenzas and Squiggles are more well known, but yes, um, terraforms. That's how I found terraforms initially, right? And you can tell from the complexity of the breakdown of that collection, right? How much is done on chain, a number of the firsts that have been created. Vanilla is another one. There's a number of collections that I haven't even touched upon yet, which I will do in subsequent threads, that people currently just aren't talking about. They're looking at heavily utility focused collections, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
Pudgy Penguins, Azuki, etc., etc. Someone recently actually picked up an Excopy, one of the first Excopy known origins. That collection, they picked up one for 22 ETH. The floor is now 40 ETH. It was an absolute steal, and it was highlighted in my thread. So that's the first point I would give for anyone that is a collector with a serious amount of funds, or a decent amount of funds, shall we say.
Yeah, and Dork God, thank you so much for the primer. Going for 12 months. Yo, appreciate you. You're insane. So the talk of 10,000 collections here that are utility driven. I myself am somebody that kind of looks at that and say, hey, you know, potentially yield bearing assets, you know, there's much bigger room to grow, I think, to an extent on them. But you're right. There is just the straight up, hey, you know, historical art that you like in general. But for these bigger kind of collections, is there any ones that you like really stand out for you? Obviously, there's Moonbirds, Bored Ape Yacht Club, Gutter Cat Gang, Cool Cats. The list can go on and on. But if you're going to pick two collections that you really like and maybe two collections that you haven't been too much of a fan of that are in this 10K collection, what would they be?
That's incendiary. I'm going to annoy a number of holders here. I will say initially, um, one of the major mistakes that collectors, traders make is they don't clearly clarify their time horizon, right? What is the reason behind buying the collection? Are you looking to buy and hold? And I mean seriously buy and hold, i.e., for a year to 5 years, etc., to have it as a store of value? Are you looking to buy and trade? And over what time period? There's actually, in terms of ROI, it makes more sense to jump in and out of collections as attention rotates towards them. And what I mean by that is the information is out there. All of these collections have roadmaps that are pretty clear as to what their next steps are. You can accurately predict when attention is going to fall back onto a collection. Let me give some examples. For example, Invisible Friends, there's going to be a Garbage Friends drop some point in Q1, and people are slowly accumulating now, but it's not common knowledge, right? The floor, um, if I'm accurate, has gone up from around 1.9 to 2.4, 2.5 on the Invisible Friends collection as we speak. Whales are slowly accumulating to get the airdrop, the free mint of Garbage Friends, and Garbage Friends has a huge social value at the moment. It's getting 1.5, 1.6k likes per post. So that's a guaranteed slam dunk. Sorry. The second collection is Moonbirds. We know that Moonbirds XYZ, the newer collection is coming out, and you can get it by collecting oddities, right? You can burn 50 oddities per day, one to one, to get the new Moonbirds collection. So people are slowly accumulating oddities, right? So there's a lot of information arbitrage in NFTs, even to a greater extent than crypto, that people just either don't see or they forget. The same thing with Bay Club, right? So the Bay Club Trial of Jimmy the Eve, Trial of Jimmy, that was common knowledge for quite a long time that it would be at the end of Q4. It was on the roadmap. Bay Club holders had spoken about that on and off throughout the year, and it just went under people's radar, right? So, I mean, the dogs, the Kennel Club, jumped from around 6 ETH to 12, 13 ETH within 2 weeks. So if you take your time, you watch for a low volume period, and you start collecting, you can make a killing with these sort of flips and trades.
The sewer passes and everything around Dookie Dash has been one of the most fascinating things ever, because it feels like we have a pump and then we kind of have a little bit of a downturn, and then we have a pump and then a little bit of a downturn. And this chart kind of highlights that, if anyone is watching on the stream here. But I mean, what do you think of this overall? Like, it's just turned into like mass speculation because there was a mod the other day that said, "Oh yeah, like there's potentially like the chance of you taking your Siri key, and then if you pair it up with the dog, you can get this different like EVO3 or this EVO2, and then you also now have the compilation of these like big time gamers starting to get into doing it, and then now it feels like for some people that they're not throwing out money for it. They're like, oh crap, like we're not able to compete within the top because for like a top 1,000 score, you need to have like 400,000 points in the game, which pretty much you need to be spending ApeCoin, and it's very, very helpful to have the highest tier. So, what's your overall kind of vibe here with the Sewer Pass and Dookie Dash?
I think it's a very clever mint mechanic that also doubles as a proof of concept for a new game for Bay Club. They can test out their capabilities in terms of creating mobile games, easy to play, addictive games. It also gives them token sinks for ApeCoin, which is key. Obviously, they hold a lot of ApeCoin following the other side mint. They've just recently allowed staking, which has brought much more volume of ApeCoin to the market. So this is perfectly timed. From a collector standpoint, if I was going to, if I had a tier one pass, right, I would. Well, it depends on your aim. If you want to make if you want to make short term profit, you should be sweeping the tier one passes. If you want to rise up the rankings, there's no point being mid range. We know in every collection, if you get a mid range collectible, it's harder to sell, it's harder to get fair value. So you either just do one game and make sure you have a non-zero score, right? Because there's going to be a number of passes which are just zeroed out, or you go above and beyond and get a tier 3, a tier 4 pass. um, Either pay a gamer, uh, or game yourself with the boost, etc., and really try to get in the top, maybe top 1,000, but I'd say ideally top 500, top 400 in the collection. Because if you're in the middle, it's it's not ideal. You're not going to get fair value. You're going to use a lot of money to get up there in scores. So that's what I would advise. And there's another arbitrage here for just flipping the sewer passes. We know that NFTs are basically social bearing instruments in a sense of whatever garners the attention, right, garners the price. Okay, and we know from now to the till mid-February when they mint the first part, all eyes are going to be on the sewer pass. They're going to be on the game. Uh, every crypto NFT influencers posting their scores. Twitch streamers are involved. Major gamers or major followings are involved in spreading the word here, and that's just going to create FOMO over time. So I expect the value and the price of the passes to steadily go up, um, until mint or until the next step is announced.
And Wind Talker is saying Garga just posted about they are checking people's metadata if needed, since someone said they were able to hack the game for a score. And that's, I mean, that's kind of interesting, the thought of that. Like, do you think, DaVinci, that BOIC is going to do anything about people that are potentially doing anything that's like kind of suspect? Because in a way, like, it's almost encouraged because the way they did like the warm wallet, I mean, obviously there's the security aspects to it, but they kind of did open the door to allow it like as an open market for people to be able to go and play the game. But obviously they're trying to prevent people from actually hacking versus just being really really good at it.
Well, I don't know if you saw the tweet, but Cirrus, no, it wasn't Cirrus actually. Who's the individual that used to do smart contracts
His
for,
name is like Cyan or something. I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, for Azuki? Um, he literally just posted a thread saying he's hacked it, and he had a video beneath it to show it. It took him 4 or 5 days, but he's hacked it. So they're going to have to react to that to an extent, and do as much as they can. I mean, how much can they really do to stop hackers, and hackers that may be more sophisticated than he is? I don't know, but I'm sure they're going to minimize that as much as possible, just for the good of the brand.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just trying to. I don't. I don't remember the name, but I'm trying to. I'm trying to flip through and see. where it was. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Dork God, they won't do anything about outsourced pro gamers. There's like so many people doing that in the community, huge names. But yeah, for sure they'll review if there was actually hacking involved in the runs, clipping obstacles, etc. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Do you think that they have like a database where they can like replay runs or anything like that, the Vinci, or is it just kind of
Saigar.
a
His name's Saigar. Saigar.
Saigar?
That's the one. Do I think? Well, it's not actually a bad thing that pro gamer. Well, not a bad thing for Bay Club that pro gamers are being brought in, right? And being paid. Basically, it's pay to win anyway, and you're getting them involved with the ecosystem
Yeah.
and bringing more eyes to Bay Club. Um, so what was the previous question? Do I think?
I think I asked about them like having the videos of like each run saved somewhere. Like I'm assuming they don't.
I don't think so. I'm sure they can monitor the back end activity
Right,
as
right.
to because there will be a certain threshold where human reactions can't track, right? So if they can monitor the back end activity, they can see that this is below. Let's say it's an arbitrary 0.1 reaction time that a human can do. You're going to see some of these stats aren't possible unless it's a
Yeah,
hack.
yeah, so my best score without any boosts or anything was like 116,000, and then like that same day, people started getting runs of 200,000, and at that point, I knew that I wasn't cut out for this life. Dorkgod, I do hope that the next skill-based mint taps into something besides these type of Twitch gaming mechanics, and that it's a competitive amongst the community of holders, not outsourceable. That's an interesting thought. Like, I mean, DaVinci, kind of a broad question here, but if you were going to change how Dookie Dash was like launched or the way the system was implemented, is there anything that you would have done differently?
To be fair, I think for the aim that Board Ape Club had, right? I think it's worked out perfectly for them. Not for the general public, but for Bay Club. So Bay Club wanted to have a gamified mint experience, and they've got that right. So one thing is they've avoided the other side um, mess up, for want of a better term, right? In terms of minting, burning loads of
Everyone
gas
forgets
and
about that until it gets brought up, and they're like,
exactly,
"Oh yeah, that."
exactly. So they've completely avoided that. You have to remember that it's initially this is for their holders, so they've airdropped value once again to Bay Club holders because the sewer pass is what was trading between 1 and it's like 2.5 ETH now, and they all got multiple or at least one, or they got multiples per ape or what have you. So they've been able to sell some for a profit. Number two, number three, the ape coin boosts have helped bolster the value of ape. I think it's above $5 now. It's up nearly 100%. And for OG holders, ape is free for them. They were airdropped ape from Bay Club, right? So obviously, if you're external to the ecosystem and you're looking to come in, it's going to cost you. But if you're a holder and a believer within the centralized Bay Club system, you're more than happy with what's going on. So I think for the objectives that Bay Club have, also testing out, basically sandboxing a new mobile game and testing it out on a finite number of loyal users and marketers, is worked out perfectly.
So, a tweet here from Garga that was mentioned earlier from Windtalker in chat. Heads up that we collect a lot of gameplay and metadata of every single play in Dookie Dash. While there's some real-time checks, the in-depth score audit will happen after the game ends. Scores found doing sketchy shit will go to 0 and not participate in the summoning. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to find the tweet here. I'm just scrolling. But from Spencer Tucker, who's like the Yuga gaming lead, he tweeted the other day, and it was something along the effects of that he's very excited that people are dedicating time towards this, that they're feeling connected to it, and it's going to carry over, and he can't wait to see people get connected to with what they get from the summoning with it. So are you very bullish on the summoning the following mint, or kind of like 50-50 on it? Do you have any strong opinions?
That's a good question. So they're going to have another activation point, right? So after the sewer pass, it goes on to the next step. and it just rolls on and on. Then they say for the whole of 2023, or for a large part of 2023. So I am bullish on. Yeah, you know what? Yes, I'm bullish that the collection's going to have a high value when it reveals, because of the amount of social attention and the amount of personal investment people have put into, getting the rankings and getting the points, etc. Bay Club's art is usually, very good. It's usually attractive, etc. I don't think they're going to fail in that respect. Yeah, so I am bullish for the initial pricing of the collection when it launches. Even Other Side had an incredible floor when it initially minted out, and that
Yeah.
was for 100K pieces.
Facts. Yeah. That's another thing. Is like, what's the status quo of, okay, like it's okay to have X amount for a supply, because like Atom Bomb Squad, I think they did like 20,000 or 30,000 for theirs back in the day, and a lot of people were like, "Whoa, that's a lot," and it ended up working out fine. And obviously, we're seeing Yuga mint a whole bunch of different supply amounts, and all of them seem to be propped up pretty well. And Dork got in the chat, if these are mechs and tie into 10K TF in some official capacity, I'm extremely bullish. Obviously, they're mechs, but will the tie into 10KF lore to other side official? So this is a great conversation. And DaVinci, I don't know like how much you've looked into 10KTF, and admittedly, I've watched the videos, but I never really like got into it more so in terms of staking or being a part of these the battles and stuff that they had on their site, just because I didn't own 10K assets. But it does seem that people are extremely bullish on 10KTF, the connection with people, et cetera, et cetera. How big do you think that collab is? Does it really like bring this collection to a whole nother level, or do you think that it's a very nice addition to them, but it's not necessarily mind-blowing like some people are highlighting just of 10KTF?
So I have a few threads on 10KTF, on Renga, on Mutant Hounds, on Applied Primates, and there are a few theories, right, and a few notations within the art, synergies within the different stories that could suggest there's an individual called Kupo on Twitter that's very good at teasing these little areas and synergies to get out and creating tweets and threads around it. It could suggest that they're all interrelated in the Other Side metaverse. I wouldn't put my life on it, but there seems to be a lot of secondary conjecture that it's going to be a very vibrant, shall we say, a very vibrant ecosystem with more than one collection. Now, in terms of 10KTF itself, I think it's a major acquisition. It is similar to Doodles, and we go back to Golden Wolf, right? Because 10KTF, the animation, we've seen the storytelling capability. We know they have people as well, etc. Very strong backing. And once you bring that into the Other Side, that's really going to help with the storytelling layer of the project, right? And the experiences that Bay Club can produce.
Just watching one of the videos here on screen from 10KTF. And I mean, I think that it's also interesting that there's been so many different collections that seem to be linked overall. And I'm curious in your perception of partnerships as well as collaborations. And I've asked a lot of people that we've interviewed over on the stream like that kind of same question, but like broadly, what do you think of collabs and partnerships? Do you think that these are all really valuable, and I just mean for collections for one another, or do you think that a lot of these are kind of like overdone and it seems that everybody's partnering with everybody? Hello, sorry, check hello.
I lost you there.
Oh, sorry, my bad. I'm here. So, just my question regarding. So, we're talking a little bit about collaborations here, and so I'm curious. Like, do you have any like hot takes or anything about all these different collections that are partnering with each other? Is it extremely bullish? Is it potentially bearish with having to amalgamate all these different things, or is it just really a collab is just a positive sign? Period. Sorry, check. Am I cutting out again?
You were cutting out a little bit there. I think you asked me about collaborations and whether I'm bullish on them.
Yeah, and I just mean in general, not necessarily for Yuga, just the space as a whole with collections collabing.
Short answer is yes. I mean, the space is going to grow by a quadratic function, right? There's going to be exponential growth between now and 2030. We're already seeing the shoots with major Web2 businesses and ecosystems looking to enter Web3 and looking to utilize NFT technology. And what some people forget or sometimes overlook is one of the major use cases, one of the major differentiating factors between Web2 and Web3 is interoperability. Okay, it's the capability to have minds and major teams from different collections interweave and interwork together within the same ecosystem. Okay, I mean we've seen this with Futureverse, right? And they've got a myriad of different NFT collections under their banner. They're all working within, shall we say, boroughs or within a metaverse ecosystem, and that's only going to enrich, sorry, the detail and the level of quality of the storytelling. You know, a Web2, if we take for example, I'm trying to think here, any random Web2 game, right? Slash, maybe some people might tell them as metaverse. So let's say GTA, right? GTA is an incredibly complex Web2 game, but it's run by one software house, one game dev house. Okay, you have the ability within Web3 to have four down the line to have 4 or 5 GTA level franchises that intermix and interrelate in one space.
What do you think about some of these different collections that are saying that they're building out these metaverses? Because when you're talking about GTA, I'm starting to think of like Helix and obviously like Sandbox, and I mean, other side's a big thing. Like, where do you think the final destination is for this stuff? Like, is Metaverse just kind of like a buzz term, or do you think that there's actually going to be something where Sandbox does have mainstream adoption, other side does have mainstream adoption? It's like to a whole nother level, because right now it does feel like kind of a struggle to explain to people, oh yeah, these metaverses are a thing, and they're like, yeah, BS meter going way off.
That's a very good question. Um, so the difference between the metaverse and the game is basically experiences at scale, right? So the number of individuals you could have in one place and what they can experience within that shared environment, i.e., maybe there's a soccer game, right? And you could have 100,000 DJs, or a concert might be easier. And you have 100,000 DJs in the concert in one instance, viewing the concert and able to make comments to each other at the same time about the music. Okay, that's not possible at the moment. In Web2, the closest we've got is Fortnite, where they segregate the instances. So they break up the instances into, shall we say, 20 or 50 different dungeons of, I think it was 10K people at a time. But with a true metaverse, let's say if whether Mutable makes it with other side or the Futureverse gets there, etc., it would be the capability to have that number of individuals in one instance speaking to each other, interconnecting. Impact, the chances of success. Is selling land the right thing to do? Right? Is it right to have a bunch of holders who hold land and critical pieces in a general use metaverse? And will that allow other people to enter the metaverse at a low barrier of entry and be interested in doing so, knowing in the back of their minds that they're secondary citizens? We don't know. Is Punk 6529's take on the metaverse with OM, is that the correct one, where land is completely free and they're looking to create value by generating interest in specific builds within that metaverse? You know, does that work, or is there a lack of appreciation for that metaverse because no one has initial skin in the game? You know, so there's a number of different questions. What I would say initially for anyone looking to invest in these metaverse projects, number one, this is not a short-term flip. You're looking at a 5 to 10 year hold. Valuations are going to go all over the place throughout that time. And number two, look at the projects that have the funding. You need major funding to make this happen. So they're either VC backed, or they have, I'm talking about 50 to 100 million in the vault if they're going to have any chance of competing and creating these sort of ecosystems.
It's crazy the amount of money that's getting put into this, and also how many different people are trying to do it as well. Is there any ones that you're looking at that you think, hell yeah, like these ones are my bets for making it in the end?
Okay, let's have a look. I think at the moment, the Futureverse looks like a good bet because they have a lot of funding, and they've used acquisitions to bring a number of different projects under their banner, meaning they have natural integration between different projects and different teams, which helps a lot when you're trying to build out a metaverse that covers a number of different aspects. Obviously, Bay Club has to be taken seriously. Number one, because they have the social capital, they have the attention, right? Attention creates desire, creates want to be involved, and you need that above anything else if you're going to get people in. And they have mainstream main brand recognition, and you need that before anything else if you're going to get people into your ecosystem. And the Mutable X are a very good company, right? And they've got very good tech, So I like that as well in terms of chances. Sandbox, I guess, is another. It's backed by Animoca, and Animoca's everywhere. So the amount of financial capital, social capital is high, but they seem to have a slower cadence in development. Um, and then I would say the open metaverse with Punk 6529 because it's a completely different methodology. Oh, sorry, and World Wide Web as well. World Wide Web is a great look at a Web3 native business creating a metaverse, right? The graphical appeal is lower, but that shouldn't stop them because it didn't stop Pokemon, etc. Right? The interoperability, the ability to move assets in and out between different instances for them is great, and the pace of development and building in the open, which are two things we both know, garner interest and support from the NFT space.
Okay, I like all those picks, but I mean, if I'm gonna be somebody that's like, whoa, hold on a minute. You said Sandbox, and there's a lot of people that are no longer fans of Sandbox or think that they're gonna take way too long to create something. And I've dabbled in it a little bit. I don't think it's too bad. I think that I've struggled a little bit with the gameplay just because I completed like a whole bunch of quests. I spent like 2 hours doing this thing, and then I logged out and like I didn't get any of the assets that I worked that time for. I don't know, maybe if they're in my account now, but they never went through, and I feel like it's not. The onboarding aspect of it isn't necessarily phenomenal. So why do you think that Sandbox, particularly of all those ones, are one that's going to make it? Is it just the Animoca aspect, or do you like personally really like the gameplay?
Just to clarify, I didn't say any of these will actually make it.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
right?
my bad. Just ones that you think are potentially more likely to than others. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of chances
I gotcha.
of making it, current instances, Sandbox, it's the backing because Animoca is integrated into everything that's going on within the Web3 space. So they have the money, they have the social capital and the ability to pull different projects into the Sandbox and make use of their assets because they own a lot of them. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of integration between the other side and Sandbox at some point. But for me, it's not. I'm not investing in metaverse assets at this time because there's a long runway. I mean, you can get involved in those assets at any time. I would say the next 2-3 years, and you still be able to get a good price. Other side is going to drop another 100K land parcels in the next year or 6 months. So there's no real rush to do so, right? If you have liquid capital, there's better ways to make a return, or even to buy assets that will give you auxiliary benefits.
It's so fascinating that we get to kind of pick and choose from these different genres and possibilities, I guess would be the other word. But when you kind of take a step back and you look at land and metaverse in general, you look at these 10K mass collections, right? The Doodles, the BAYC, etc. You see the individual artists, the X copies out there, and now the neon cat balloon thing just blowing up, which is kind of funny. And I mean, I'm trying to think of what else, but I mean, is there anything that you personally just really think are going to be worth it? Like, because for myself, I see where the metaverse land and the game and blockchain gaming in general can go, and I'm extremely bullish on that. Where I know other people are more about the art or these big 10K collection communities. What kind of subset is something that you're very bullish on if you had to pick one?
Okay, so I can break it down into two between trading and collecting, right? Um, let's start with collecting and long-term assets. I see number one, gen art and historical NFT art pieces has been at the forefront. You have to look, number one, collection sizes are smaller. Number two, attention in the general populace at the moment on those assets is lower. Number three, the holders of those assets are diamond handed. They're, CryptoPunk alums and the likes of DC Investor, etc. All of the bigger founders and holders, they have those historical assets. So if you can't get the historical asset, at least look at historical artists within the space and maybe buy some of their newer open editions. Because I, we work to power laws, and I think some of those collections, those collections and those artists have already made it. it it's just going to compound over time. So their gap over the 80 or 90% of other NFT collections is just going to spread and increase. So anything that's already socially validated to an extent, if you look at even Squiggles, if you look at Fidenza, X Copy, there's a long list of historical artists and art, and gen art in particular, where they are first being created, terraforms, etc. Maybe even familiar as well, but where they're first being created, right? And it's been validated by holders and people are accumulating. So that's what I would say for long term. Short term, there's two or three ways to do things. If you care about building a brand, about getting eyes to whatever you want to do, if you're looking at personal Web3 branding or creating a following, that's one strong reason why you should buy into a collection, right? The likes of Azuki, the likes of Bay Club, they have very strong community ties. They're going to help you with recognition. NFT God grew after buying a mutant ape, right? He made that his whole IP, his whole brand. So that's one side of things. Secondly, you want to look at the strength. I mean, Azuki is controversial because of Zagabond, right?
If that
So
guy wasn't involved, yeah, that collection would be just flying, I think.
yes, 100%, 100%. It's very controversial, but you have to look at the holders and their strength of conviction. I personally, with the newer collections, you pick some assets you don't mind going to zero. Maybe you want to utilize the social branding, etc. Or you think there's going to be more secondary drops that you can make money off, and then it's easier to trade them because they have ups and downs. Look at Clone X. Clone X is what at 5 ETH floor now, and previously I think there was a point it was at 11 or 12 ETH, etc. It probably is going to rebound just because that's the nature of the market, right? But these collections fluctuate massively on attention and on deliverables because they're utility based. So it's better for you to time your entries and exits, right? To take that profit in the middle of the move and then get back, stay liquid and get back into them when and where you can. Um, oh, Pudgy Penguins, by the way, if we're talking about a brand that's done everything right so far, Pudgy Penguins with Luca Nets definitely deserves a shout out. I like the IP play, the fact that with Instagram, etc., they're appealing solely to Web 2. They're not mentioning NFTs or Web 3. They're not putting off the wider populace. Luca's young, he's nimble. They've got a very strong advisory board between, I would say that sweet spot between 25 and 35 or 20 and 35 in terms of um, holders, because you need to be in touch with Web3. You need to be a native. You need to understand, have your fingers on the pulse. We see that with the Gods and Frank as well, right? You need to be able to understand what's going on, and you have to be able to nimbly react to market sentiment. So those are the sort of collections I would point out. But I think a lot of people may be playing the game wrong. They some people buy into a collection supposedly thinking it's long term, but technically they know inside it's more of a short term. It's a trade. It's not a hodl, right? So they're buying, looking to sell at a higher exit point, and when the price fluctuates to the downside, they're forced to pay per hand and sell, and they end up losing money. So if it's a trade, treat those collections as trades predominantly. If we look at someone like Cirrus, right, that's a great trader. Trade sentiment, trade market, um, trade sentiment, trade market correlation, etc. Get in and get out and try and keep your emotions out of it. If you're buying because you love the community, you love the collection, you love the art, you want the branding, then do so and see it as a one year is a long time in NFTs, 1 to 5 year hold, right? And don't try and mix the two.
You are just an absolute wealth of knowledge. And as we're kind of wrapping up here, I do know that you have a Substack, and I want to encourage anybody that's watching right now, if you do want to follow him, I've thrown his Twitter down in the chat. DaVinci, why should people come check out your Substack and give you a follow on Twitter?
Well, Twitter, it's easy. Follow me on Twitter. You get up to date posts on upcoming, current, and historically relevant NFT projects. It's all very easy to look through on my pinned tweet. There's around 52, 53 project breakdowns at the moment. That grows daily. Sometimes my tweets or my threads move the market, in fact. So if you get there early and you see the thread, a lot of the time it seems to garner attention or highlight, oh, this whale has been sweeping X, Y, Z. Why are they sweeping? Here's the thread. People see it. They go to pick up those assets. So this is a way of getting ahead of the herd in that sense as well. The newsletter is focused on biographies of successful creators and artists, right? So you're going to get really interesting information. I mean, I'll give you an announcement here. The first artist is going to be Xcopy. So you're going to understand his background, what it took from him to go, shall we say, from zero to hero, what lessons we can learn, and potentially what he's looking to do in the future, or what tactics he used to become successful that you can see in other founders, artists, creators at the moment, which will help you be able to pick out new upcoming and emerging successful NFT collections.
That is absolutely wonderful. And again, I'm going to link it one more time down here in the chat, guys, if you are wanting to follow DaVinci. And sir, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been an awesome conversation, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
Oh, I appreciate it, Sheila. I'm a big fan. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yo, appreciate you. All right. We'll talk soon.